JBB's Final Thoughts, Episode 30, Better Online, Better Face-to-Face. Successful Online Dating Stories with Jocelyn and David. Joe Bustillos here. I think there might be an unintended theme starting this year of 2019. The following is an interview conversation that I had with my friends Jocelyn and David in the spring of 2016 when I was still living in Orlando just before leaving for Las Vegas. This is one of two interviews that I did when I was looking into the theme Better Online, Better Face-to-Face, a theme that I find even more interesting now as social networks like Facebook come under fire for its unintended or unanticipated consequences in this nation's political life. Thank you for tuning into JBB's Final Thoughts, Episode 30, Better Online, Better Face-to-Face, Successful Online Dating Stories with Jocelyn and David. So I appreciate you guys speaking with me about this subject. And I was telling David a little bit earlier, the idea was the juxtaposition of something that's better online versus better face-to-face. And this, in my way of thinking, kind of a false dichotomy that it can only be one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But so as I was thinking about all the different areas where this dichotomy exists, one of them is the beginning of or meeting people, relationship, socialization. And I had heard, although I never heard the story, that you guys had actually met via online.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct. It was a dating thing. Okay. I mean, I had tried a lot of dating websites, and I don't know if I want to hear about that experience, but we met on OkCupid.
Okay.
So, and I'm very open about it because it worked out very well for me to date online.
Right, okay.
I think as a single mother and as a middle-aged woman, mm-hmm. I'm not going to go out and hit a bar scene. Mm-hmm. I only have so much time to go and join new groups and try new adventures, and at the same time I don't want to introduce my son to people.
Right.
And therefore online dating is really, to me, a very logical choice for being able to narrow things down and not necessarily get involved with activities that I wouldn't enjoy as much. So I enjoyed it, but I became very systematic about it.
Okay.
And again, I don't want to do all the talking, but after several bad experiences, which I could elaborate on as well, I made a decision that you only meet people for coffee. Mm-hmm. You only meet them for 1 hour. Eventually I was wearing the same outfit every time I met somebody.
So you could tell whether...
No, to eliminate my concern and my time with it. The idea was I wanted to meet people, and initially when I went online after a 13-year marriage, and I had been very unhappy, and then I went through an alone process, and then I was ready to start meeting people.
Right.
Initially, when I first met people online, I invested a lot of energy. I would, you start with a kind of safe correspondence, then you share your phone number so that you're texting or other things. Right. Next thing you know, you're 6 to 8 weeks into staying up till 1 o'clock at night texting someone,
right.
And then you meet them.
And it's not.
And they're horrible. And so I said, whoa, this is a waste of my time. Uh-huh. That's the one thing I don't have a lot of, and therefore, why am I doing this? And so I would agonize over what to wear when I met people. So I eliminated all of it.
Okay.
The idea with online dating is meet the person as quickly as possible, mm-hmm. and make it in a safe environment where there's no expectations for either side. And if you enjoy that hour, then meet them again.
So in terms of your experience, how long were you working on this system before it paid off?
Did the system pay off?
It did, yes.
I don't remember that dress.
No, that was, you were an
We went a little different route, but go ahead and talk about the system.
Yeah, and I don't know that I would want to necessarily talk about all that route. But yes, I would say it took 6 months before I had it to a system that I was comfortable with.
How long were you using online as your way of meeting people?
About a year.
Okay.
Year and a half.
So David, your own experience, let's say pre-meeting Jocelyn, did you kind of go about it the same way, or what was it that motivated you to go ahead and say, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. So I was separated for several months, uh-huh. and then got online, and it was 2 years before I met Jocelyn, I think, somewhere around there. Uh-huh. And I had been on a Match and OkCupid and I think eHarmony for a short while and Plenty of Fish. And OkCupid, I think, broke down a lot more barriers and made it really clear, you know, kind of who to talk to and who to not talk to. And my thought on that process is that these questions and answers, they don't tell you who you should go out with. They tell you who you shouldn't go out with.
Right.
So I think that helps if people have really high bars or you know, definite no's on some categories. You can figure that out pretty quickly. And I think we all suffer from that you know, human experience to try to exclude people as opposed to include people, because there's thousands and thousands of people depending on if you're in a metropolitan area or not. At the time I was not. And I met Jocelyn looking for other, you know, non-believers, non-religious people, and just stumbled across one another, I think, from a long way away, and had no intention of dating. And just, I think it was, I messaged you and said, hey, your profile looks great, you know, nice to know you're out there. And then the conversation got started. But, you know, before that, I got to a point where I felt like that it's really hard to know who someone is by even their behavior online.
Right.
So I took each opportunity to meet someone new differently, and I kind of felt it out. Some people wanted to text for a while, some people wanted to meet quickly, and I didn't really have an expectation. I didn't set a standard, and I think it's often, it seems like the women are going to guide where that goes, because if men do that, then it seems far too forward, or you kind of worry somewhat about their health and safety if you express an interest in meeting right away. So I felt that out, and it, you know, sometimes it went really well to wait a while, and it turned out that it was a great person, and sometimes it was a good idea to get to know them really quickly because you found out they weren't. So I met a lot of nice people, and some people I'm still friends with, and I think it was a good experience. And I like to say that the only people that you meet in bars are the people that are thirsty. You don't really find anything in common. I think I would have liked for Meetup to work, or other types of social media. I actually started a group in the area where I came from before I moved here, and didn't meet anybody in that group. It was only part of the reason I started the group. The group was a great success, but I didn't meet someone that, you know, that I would even go out with, I don't think, at the time. And so I felt like it was the right thing to do, to date online. It really does open some doors that are not open, especially if you have kids. I'm sure that's a big barrier.
I like online because you can ask very direct questions, and if they're offended, they'll get over it and move on.
Or not. And
or not. And move
Yeah,
on.
or not. Yeah, not move on.
You know, and I want to know about politics and religion and things like that from the beginning.
Right.
I can say that really I only was surprised as far as politics once. Where I went, he was a really nice guy, and it turned out he was extremely conservative.
Right.
And we agreed to disagree and left it at that. But I personally think those are important topics. And so if you can't agree on politics, you probably shouldn't, in my opinion, I don't like that idea of a mixed marriage.
The world's a scary place, and I think that's another issue with online dating, is people are afraid of their safety, you know, when they're out there. And you know, and I think that even when Jocelyn and I first dated, it was, you know, here's where I'm going to be, here's when I'll be back, you know, call me, make sure I'm okay.
I always had my friends involved, but as I said, once I figured out, after the first 3 months, I figured out only meet people for coffee.
Right.
Then it became a much different process.
You can get away quickly and with a good reason.
Well, you just say, this is going to be 1 hour, I have to get back to work, I have a meeting, and you know, if the person's interesting and it's, you know, you both feel that way, then you meet again.
That's right. If you go out with somebody on Friday night, you know, and it's 10 o'clock when you're saying goodnight, a lot of the standard stereotypical date is there's a kiss involved, there may be more than that, and that's difficult, and it's unnecessary to have to navigate that on a first date.
Not to mention the money, who's paying?
Right.
Who's paying, and how do you do that, and is there an expectation associated with money?
So once you guys had those initial conversations, I mean, how slow did you go? I mean, there was obviously some distance between where you guys were living.
Right, yeah, it was a 2.5, 3 hour drive between us.
So I don't know that it didn't go like other experiences, and in some ways it was very much like a few others, but it wasn't really, as I said, I didn't time it out to say, okay, you know, now I want to do this and do that, and it was pretty much, you know, just a back and forth online, and then I think, did we talk on the phone before we met?
Oh yeah, we talked on the phone, and then eventually David came over here to visit, and we really hit it off. And
3 dates in the first day.
that's it. It was a long day.
So 1 hour, I gotta go.
No, not that way.
No.
We had a few different experiences. We had lunch and then a movie and dinner, and we
Right.
joked that there was 3 dates that day because it was a long way to drive.
Right, so
Right, you're gonna get it all in.
that's,
And then it was about 6 weeks later we started.
Yeah, it was about a month or so.
Talking seriously after that, and we decided. I said, okay, I'll go visit you. So just to confirm that he is indeed who he is and,
Right.
and where he's living.
See
and,
my hovel.
Well, well, you never know what the truth is.
it's an interesting thing to have somebody in one sphere and then see them in more
Right.
of their
Oh,
home
yes.
turf.
Sure.
It is a bit of an eye opener sometimes.
Yeah.
And you don't know if people are telling you the truth. I mean, I had done enough online dating to know that, you go out with people and then you might talk on the phone and then you meet them face to face and they really are quite different. And David was indeed who he was.
I was kind of the same.
Yes, you were kind of the same. And so then I made the investment of buying a used Prius so that I could go and visit David more often.
Okay.
Because my old Xterra wasn't going to make it. And
So we dated for about a year or so before I moved up here. Right?
Yeah,
But we were together a lot during the latter part of that first
Weekends.
year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
lots of weekends.
Yeah. So it's
worked
been
out.
good so far.
Yeah, that's good.
We got married a couple years later,
And you guys, you had met on OkCupid, and it was not directly related to being part of a.
Only OkCupid.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, I did eHarmony for 2 weeks. I absolutely hated eHarmony.
I had the same experience.
I thought Match was probably, if you'd asked me back during the dating days, Match was the most dates for me.
Yeah, a paid service, it tends to keep people that aren't really serious out of it, and it also puts you in a different demographic too.
But you're able to filter.
That's true.
And I will say that I was kind of a hypocrite. I didn't want to necessarily date people with children. If they did, not more than one. I had one.
And it asks the most
Education.
important questions. Match does, I think, but OkCupid asks a lot of other questions and some questions from the users. I don't know what it's like now. It's been years since I've been on there,
Right.
but the questions were really probing, and you could decide which ones to answer and which ones not to answer.
But-
and she got them all right.
But I met some people on OkCupid who were up for just a quick meetup type of thing.
Well, and that's the other thing too is that obviously
wasn't like that.
we're a little bit further on in life,
Mm-hmm.
and so the motivations are not nearly what they were in your early
Sure.
20s or late teens.
Right.
The expectations and the knowledge and the
Right.
experience and all, and what
So
you're
the
looking
ability
for.
to say, listen, it's more important to get to know the person rather than to get a really good kiss and maybe a little bit more. Although those things are obviously important for some people.
Yes.
You know.
I mean, Plenty of Fish is where you go if you just want to meet
Okay.
someone.
It seemed that way.
I mean, that's what it was when I was on there. And again, I never met anyone on Plenty of Fish.
But I think-
But I know some people who have.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I mean, I have this idea of which sites were really good and which sites
But
weren't.
this was a while ago.
But that's true. A lot of those sites may change. But I think that other people that I've talked to are like, "Oh no, Plenty of Fish is the greatest." So I don't want to knock it from their perspective.
Right.
But I just found it to be lower quality, lower bar for entry, a lot less input on the user's part. Whereas Match had like minimums. You had a certain amount of words and
Match costs money.
Right.
yeah,
And
that too.
then you have the bio itself. Plenty of Fish, you didn't need anything except a photo and like two a male or female.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
And OkCupid, they wanted you to write a long bio, and you could tell immediately that if you didn't write enough information there, people just would skip you.
Right.
And then it started with the questions, and I assume anyone who's watching this video understands that the questions are generated by the people using the platform. So if you're interested in someone who thinks it's okay to have multiple partners or smoke cigarettes or burn the American flag, all of these
Yeah,
questions.
politics and religion,
Right, everything's on there.
and sex, and just in family.
Because there are people out there that are looking for that.
Well, they're looking
Or
to
looking-
exclude people based on the answers that
Right.
they answer those questions. I don't think we realize that when we
Right.
do it, but that's what we're doing. Oh, I don't like that person. I don't
Right.
like that
Or
person.
they're looking for people that are interested in that. I met
That's true.
the most people on OkCupid who were in open relationships, and they were looking for a third.
It was much more progressive, I think, sexually and politically, and I think that it was my favorite because it had actually done some. Before I even met Jocelyn, it was my favorite because they'd actually done some outreach into the media about how there's a lot of non-believers on there, and I thought, well, then the people that are running it, probably are interested in that. Market.
It could also be in terms of the eHarmony coming down so hard that it was pretty much believers only.
I see.
So
it was setting themselves up with their own niche.
So for everyone else that didn't fit this little box, here's a better venue.
That's true.
I don't know that a simple photograph of someone tells me anything about even what that woman might look like.
And having met a number of people, the photo almost, it's like,
the photo I'm using.
It's almost, especially if it's a good photo, it's like,
sure,
that was you when you were.
That's too good. Yeah. Right. No, I've absolutely seen that. Yeah. I mean, we're talking 10, 20 years.
I'm going to tell you, the men do it too.
Oh, no, most definitely.
Definitely the men do it. But I will say that I was always told, you look just like your photo. And I'm like, yes, because I took that photo a month ago. Thank you.
Even my photo that I use at work, on my work profile, it's from several years ago. You see all the real estate photos of the real estate agents, and then you see what they really look like. These are old photos, sometimes by choice, sometimes by accident, but they're always older than you are, always younger than you are today.
There's no excuse though with the smartphones today. You can have a photo that's been taken in the last few months.
Yeah. Well, it's marketing. People are marketing themselves. I totally get that.
The interesting though was a funny thing because I would have a whole slug of men who were 15 to 20 years older than me contacting me, and I would be like, no, I have a child that's in elementary school. I'm not going to date somebody in their 60s. I appreciate it. It's not going to happen. And they would be very insistent. And so it was very interesting how age would go both ways. But then I also had men in their 20s contact me and say, basically they were happy just to have fun. And they were looking for something else. So there's a whole...
So they all wanted the same thing.
Kind of,
yeah.
Yeah, they did.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It is. I think you were saying.
You got to be skeptical. I mean, you don't know what someone's interests are. But I tell you, when I worked on my profile, I tried to make it really clear that I was serious about.
Oh, you wrote a lot.
I was serious about who I was trying to find, and what I was looking for in a woman. And I think if you read my profile, you knew that wasn't what I was interested in. Right. So it was much easier, I think, to wade through people who were coming my way. Right. Whereas, outwardly searching, it probably was off-putting to many people who weren't interested in someone who was, writing all these things and thinking all these things and wanting to share them. And so I felt like I did a pretty good job of pushing people away that weren't interested. But perhaps some people that were. I mean, you never know if you missed someone who was really awesome because they saw one thing in your profile, and it might have been a typo.
Right. Yeah. Okay, sounds pretty good. Yeah. I appreciate you guys spending the time and sharing your story, and it gives those of us who are still kind of out there some hope.
I just, you never know who you're going to meet and who's interesting, and that's why I say pretty much, unless there's a huge red flag, I think go and meet the person, have a cup of coffee. At minimum, you lose an hour of your life. At most, you'll make, a life partner, but you'll probably make a friend if you, and I just say go meet everybody, which is kind of where I was at. You can eliminate a lot through the questions and all of that, and then, have a cup of coffee, make new friends.
2019, Joe Bustillos here. Happily, I can report the continued marital bliss between Jocelyn and David, and I should restrain myself from any further commentary about the interview or their continued success, given my own less than stellar relationship record. But let me make one observation, which is this. Their shared humanist or atheist activism, living in the Bible Belt, speaks to a level of commitment in the face of public opposition that also works in personal relationships. In other words, it helps to have a mission. I think the Christians would call that being evenly yoked, a Neolithic agrarian metaphor. If it is your desire, may you find yourself blissfully evenly yoked going forward this year. Thank you for spending this time with me at JBB's Final Thoughts. If you want to continue to participate in my outer monologue, you can subscribe to my blog at jbbsfinalthoughts.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, click on the follow button where it says follow blog via email, and enter your email address. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search for JBB's Final Thoughts and make sure it doesn't autocorrect to Jobs Final Thoughts or something like that. Damn autocorrect. Catch you later. Enjoy.